It was a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind of gray that seeps into your bones. My younger brother Jason had just passed away in a car accident, the kind where you get a call at 2:37 a.m. and your life splits into a before and an after. The funeral was at Glenview Cemetery, only 3 blocks from our neighborhood. Jason had grown up here, played Little League at the park down the street. We were honoring him where he lived and died. My house was closest to the cemetery, so extended family gathered in my driveway and on the curb. My cousin Daniel had flown in from Arizona, his rental car parked right by the community mailbox. Another parked slightly along the yellow-painted curb near my own driveway. Everyone knew this was temporary, just 2 hours to grieve, pray, and say goodbye. Except the HOA apparently saw this as a prime opportunity to strike. As we returned from the burial, wet and red-eyed, I noticed a tow truck idling near the corner of our street. My heart sank when I saw it hooked up to Daniel's rental, and another lined up behind it, hooking my own car next. Hey, what the hell are you doing? I ran over, suit soaked through, heels slipping on wet pavement. The driver shrugged, barely looking up from his clipboard. HOA orders. These were parked illegally. My mother, who had barely spoken all day, started crying again, this time out of rage. I just buried my son, she screamed, hands shaking. I tried reasoning with them. It's a funeral. There are 20 people here who can vouch for that. I'll move the cars now, right now. Too late, the driver said flatly. We're already hitched. You'll have to pick them up at the lot. 2 cars towed. $370 each, not counting the extra administrative fee slapped on top by the towing company, a local outfit called Patriot Recovery Solutions, the same name I'd seen in fine print at the bottom of a passive-aggressive email the HOA sent last month. They weren't just towing during a funeral. They were making a business out of it. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat in front of my laptop, poring over our HOA bylaws, the towing agreement, and local municipal codes. I found out our HOA had entered a renewed private contract with Patriot Recovery just 4 months ago, a sweetheart deal that allowed them to tow without warning in certain designated zones, including anywhere within 15 feet of a community mailbox or fire hydrant, even if it wasn't actively blocking access. But here's the kicker. The bylaws required a 72-hour written warning before towing, unless there was an imminent safety hazard. A rental car parked peacefully at the curb during a funeral didn't qualify, not even close. I started making calls the next morning. To the HOA management company, to the tow yard, to the city parking enforcement office. I didn't yell. I asked polite, firm questions. I documented every phone call. But no one wanted to help. The HOA president, a woman named Cheryl Dobson, mid-60s, pearls in every Zoom call, emailed me a boilerplate response. Dear Mr. Klein, while we sympathize with your personal circumstances, our HOA must uphold community standards for the benefit of all residents. Parking violations around communal areas pose a safety issue. The towing company acted within its rights under contract. Respectfully, Cheryl Dobson. No signature, no apology. No offer to reimburse or even discuss. That's when I knew they weren't going to fix this. I went deeper. Turns out, Patriot Recovery Solutions had been sued before. Twice, actually. One case involved allegedly falsifying photos of vehicles parked illegally just before towing them. Another accused them of giving kickbacks to HOA board members in exchange for preferred contract stat. Us. Both cases were quietly settled out of court. The problem was, there wasn't enough public dirt to take them down directly, but maybe, just maybe, I could make them toxic enough that our HOA couldn't afford to be associated with them. I filed a formal complaint with the city, citing the breach of our own bylaws. Then I filed an open records request for all towing activity in our neighborhood for the last 6 months. What I found was gold. Over 30 vehicles had been towed, 19 of them without warning. 5 of them were visiting family members. 2 were towed on the same day they were parked. 1 guy got towed while unloading groceries. I created a spreadsheet. Dates, times, names, photos. I contacted neighbors I barely knew. Many of them were still furious, but had let it go out of frustration. One woman, Rosa, teared up as she told me how her mother's hospice nurse got towed during a house call. Another guy, Carlos, said his elderly dad's wheelchair van got yanked in the middle of the night. They were angry, and now they had me giving them direction. Together, we formed a small neighborhood coalition. We weren't just residents anymore. We were witnesses. The next step was going to the HOA general meeting. Public, recorded, and open to all homeowners. I waited until the open comment section. When I stood up, I wasn't just speaking for myself anymore. I buried my brother last week, I said, voice steady. And while I was grieving, your contractor, Patriot Recovery, towed my car and my cousin's rental during his funeral. Without warning. That alone is inhumane. But what's worse is that it wasn't an isolated case. I passed around copies of the spreadsheet. Highlighted. Documented. These are your neighbors. You've allowed a predatory company to profit off us during moments of vulnerability. And I believe it's illegal under our own bylaws. I looked straight at Cheryl. Her fake smile didn't move. I'm demanding immediate suspension of the towing contract until an independent review is conducted. If not, I'll be forwarding this data to local news outlets and our city council. Gasps, whispers, board members shifting uncomfortably in their chairs. And Cheryl? For the first time, she looked nervous. The days after the HOA meeting moved fast. That spreadsheet? It spread like wildfire. I posted it in our community Facebook group, the one Cheryl usually used to post flower pot rules and reminders to pull your trash bins in by 9 a.m. Suddenly, real stories started pouring in. People who'd stayed quiet were now furious in public. I wasn't the only one who'd been wronged. I was just the first one to organize it. 3 days later, I got a call from Channel 6 News. Apparently, a producer had seen the Facebook post. Is this the neighborhood with the funeral towing incident? She asked. Yes, I said. And a lot more. They sent a reporter that weekend, interviewed me, Rosa, Carlos, and 2 more residents. We stood outside the HOA office holding copies of our invoices and tow receipts while the camera rolled. By Monday night, the story aired. Headline, Towed while grieving, local HOA faces backlash over predatory towing practices. Cheryl refused to comment on camera. The news anchor even mentioned the possible conflict of interest. Turns out Cheryl's son-in-law worked for Patriot Recovery's billing department. That detail came from an anonymous email I'd received through our New Neighborhood Coalition inbox. And now, the dominoes began to fall. First, the city opened a formal investigation into Patriot Recovery. Someone, I won't say who, forwarded all the towing documents to the Department of Consumer Protection. Then, an emergency HOA board meeting was called. For the first time in years, it was packed. Standing room only. Residents weren't there to listen. They were there to demand. I didn't need to speak this time. Rosa did. I watched my mom take her last breath, she said, her voice cracking, and the nurse who helped her through it had to pay $400 to get her car back. You let that happen. Silence. Just the sound of chairs creaking and Cheryl scribbling something into her binder. Probably notes for her lawyer. Then came the vote. The board unanimously suspended the HOA's contract with Patriot Recovery, effective immediately. No more towing. Not without 7-day written notice and photo documentation submitted to an independent management company, one the board agreed to hire within 30 days. It was over. But I wasn't done. I wrote one last email, not to the HOA, to Patriot Recovery's owner. You towed my car during my brother's funeral. You could have shown basic decency. Instead, you made enemies out of the entire neighborhood. Now you've lost your biggest residential contract, you're under investigation, and your reputation is tanked. Let this be a lesson. Some people don't forget. Some of us fight back. No threats. Just truth. I never got a reply. But a week later, Patriot Recovery's sign was taken off their lot. The building was shuttered. Their website disappeared. Rumor has it they're rebranding. Too little, too late. We weren't just homeowners anymore. We were a community, one that learned how to bite back.